We all carry around an image of ourselves, an identity. Communities and states are the same way. So when a piece of evidence does not fit the way we see ourselves, we need clear-eyed visionaries who have the courage and skills to point it out and lead us in a new direction.
So we'll need extra time. We'll need extra support.
Such is the need of our educational system today. Not only do we have the largest achievement gap in the nation, we have 135 schools deemed in need of improvement for 5 years or more. This affects the lives of more than 100,000 students every year, nearly 1/5 of our students. Clearly, the repercussions spread even well beyond them to their families and our communities, making this a massive statewide problem with no systemic statewide approach to fixing it. What we do have are some models for success from leaders who have stepped up to be agents of change.
People who are gonna eat breakfast, let's eat breakfast first and come out to play second, okay?
Jeff Wibby is the principal of Natchaug School in the Wyndham School District.
No, somebody brought me a candy cane.
Prior to 2010, Natchaug School was one of the lowest scoring schools in the state of Connecticut. So it was really a school that was in an academic crisis.
Certainly, we haven't done well on the testing. And it's hard to look at the numbers and say we are failing.
And I know we have a lot of schools right now that aren't performing where we'd like them.
It's the behavior in the classrooms that's basically out of control.
When schools must be turned around, accountability is the first watchword.
The red flag goes up and you have to try and change the way you're doing things.
And that almost always means that the first action necessary is to replace leadership.
The challenge in our community is that, and we don't want to hurt people's feelings, and people are going to be hurt when you lose a principal or another key player that you've seen as caring. The problem is we need to separate the fact that they care with the fact that the results aren't there.
Clear and strong accountability with high expectations. That has created a sense of urgency for districts and schools to find solutions and take bolder action than they otherwise would.
In the case of Natchaug School, a turnaround grant required that a new principal be hired.
But accountability in and of itself will not turn around schools, because usually in these cases you have everybody working as hard as they can, trying their best, and they just don't know how to do it.
So the new principal's job is to acquaint the school and community with a whole new approach.
You talk about school turnaround, we usually talk about 3 things. People, what's the quality of the faculty and how do you make them better? Data, how do you really look at kids and what they need and give them that? And then time, which is this extra time to close these gaps, whether they're academic achievement gaps or opportunity gaps.
I'm more of a mutt.
What kind of dogs are mutts?
A Rottweiler.
Mutts are a couple different kinds of dogs.
The transformation is most successful when the changes reflect the specific school and community.
Doghouse, right?
First thing you want to do is you want to analyze what's going on, what's working well, what's not working.
Well, every time they found coins, what happened? They said they jump buckets of water every day.
In a case of Natchaug, Wibby decided that change was best accomplished by retaining most of the original teaching staff.
So we're going to use our rounding skills today. Already.
One of the first things that became very obvious was the level of mutual respect between students and teachers and families and teachers.
I go to the store and go shopping.
Teachers were very warm to kids.
Yeah? So maybe you
I would say the teachers care immensely.
And I love how
They are the key to the district moving forward.
How much did you just take in yesterday?
But in the community, there's a sense of frustration, maybe hopelessness.
Like many places in the country, this community's economy has taken a turn for the worse. And forward-thinking leaders understand that low academic achievement is both the effect and the cause of poverty.
My sense is that unless the schools get better, the level of economic decline that Windham has experienced will simply get worse. Ultimately, it leads to a loss of population, as anyone who has the wherewithal to get out does get out. They simply vote with their feet. I think you can see that pattern in Windham over the last several years. And unless you can halt it, it simply puts the community into a death spiral.
Children who are born into poverty come with hundreds of thousands of less words in their vocabulary. And, and as you know, words are thoughts. Words are vehicles to think.
You should write it vertically so you can do the math more, it's easier. It's easier that way.
You could definitely write it vertically. What do we do next if I'm going to estimate the difference?
Hey, you can try the test. If we don't have, too much ones, we could estimate.
Many times kids have both poverty issues and second language issues.
The demographics of our school population are shifting. So right now, close to 45% of all students in U.S. public schools are students of color. And as this population has grown dramatically, we have not seen subsequent gains in academic success at the same kind of dramatic level.
The achievement gap in the state of Connecticut disproportionately affects all of our minority. In Windham, it specifically affects our Hispanic population.
We had two jobs to reform Natchug School. We had to rebuild the ship properly, but at the same time, you had a lot of kids who were in academic crisis, so you couldn't just leave them behind. And so the second task after, as well as building the ship, you had to build a lot of rescue boats. But, as you can imagine,
That's the way it is.
to change institutions, it's quite a task.
They're just getting started, and 1 year in are seeing impressive results. But Natchog is just one school. To turn around the whole district required a larger approach. The State Board of Education turned to Dr. Stephen Adamowski, a change agent with success in Cincinnati, Ohio, and later in Hartford, Connecticut. They recently appointed him Special Master of the Windham District and gave him flexible, broad powers to turn it around. Adamowski brings to Windham lessons from his previous turnaround experience, including reimagining the role of district and school leaders.
The principalship has changed drastically in this environment because we are now no longer talking about a manager that carries out district policies and procedures. We're talking about an entrepreneurial leader who can figure out how to do things in their own context.
It was a working philosophy Adamowski and his school redesigner Christina Kishimoto employed during his previous success in Hartford.
At the time of Hartford's reform, Hartford was the lowest performing district in the state that had the greatest achievement gap. So we were the poster child for the achievement gap.
We are a city that is struggling with a high level of poverty. Our students who receive free and reduced lunch is at 94 to 96 percentage points each year.
There were many people who doubted the gap could be closed. I think the results of Hartford over the last few years and continuing under Christina Kishimoto's leadership defy that premise.
One of those success stories is the Annie Fisher STEM School, where Adamowski and Kishimoto hired another entrepreneurial principal named Melanie Brady.
Good morning, guys. Tuck your shirt in, please.
Hola.
Hola. Good morning. Good morning. Dr. Adamowski and Dr. Christina Kishimoto gave me the autonomy to really develop from the ground up what was going to be hopefully a successful program.
There are different models for turnaround, including charter schools, but it was decided the approach in this case would be a magnet school, organized around a science and math theme. And the district leadership decided change was best accomplished by having the teaching staff reapply for their jobs.
Our approach in Hartford was changing out the staff.
That it would be a positive.
Only 10% of the existing staff would remain in the building.
How about your friends?
Okay, so we're gonna switch gears. So we have a mystery. Who stole our cheesecake? And luckily, we have some people in this class who like to solve mysteries. And Andrew.
A lot of parents were upset. They were like, we're getting all these new teachers from out of town that don't live in the neighborhoods. They don't know about the kids.
Redesign is scary for parents. There's no doubt it's your child's education.
Then they started to see what the new design entailed.
This is a marble launcher. Place the marble on the ramp at the number 1 at the top. Drop the marble down the ramp. When the marble hits the bottom of the ramp, start the timer. What are we calculating at the end?
Distance, the speed, the time.
The quality of the curriculum for Annie Fisher STEM right now, it's a big difference from the old school to the new.
4, 5,
3
6,
trials.
7, 8.
Drop it now.
Our core instructional philosophy here at the school is inquiry-based education. We start with students making observations.
Make sure you are exactly at that starting line, okay? Because otherwise...
So from those observations, all of our students formulate questions. And those are actually derived from what the students are noticing and wondering about.
So we have to talk about the validity of this experiment a little bit. Did it always roll straight?
In the old school, just give us the same questions and over until we get it. But like in this school, we have like logical thinking.
If it rolls in a curve like that, do we think we're adding distance or subtracting distance?
So you're not just in a book, reading out straight from a book. You have to teach yourself. You learn from your friends.
Distance on the top.
We see kids that are committed to helping one another, and we just see kids that are excited about learning.
The experiment. Shamar.
If the floor was waxed, what would be different?
Okay, if the floor was waxed, it might be different.
Well, they make us use our brain. They make us think about
Distance, if it's taking a curved or a straight
If something is too hard for me, they're going to break it down or just teach me in a way that I can understand it.
You guys did real well today. I think we definitely learned a lot about speed.
Over the course of the summer, each one of our teachers participates in 10 professional development days just focused on inquiry so that when they come back in September, everybody speaks the same instructional language.
The change is not only in the teachers and the school, it's in the kids.
I have changed. Before, I was very doubtful of myself. I thought I was just not smart enough to do anything. I feel more comfortable and secure here than before.
So right now, she's on honor roll in school. She's on I honors. She's on the principal award.
And now that STEM is giving me a bigger challenge, especially in math and science, because I want to become a doctor. So I have to really study hard and pay attention to science.
Being in the new school kind of has changed the way I look at myself, like how successful I'm going to be. That's what they make me think about is my future and what I'm going to do with it.
We see kids now, they come into school just to come into school. Even when they see us here on Saturday, they come over. So we've really become a community again.
I believe Fisher had the greatest gain in its first year of operation of any school in Hartford. So we have proof points all over the place that this can be done.
At this point in the reform process, models are vital. Nationally, one of the most clearly successful models for turnaround exists in Boston, Massachusetts. And they credit much of their success to expanding the amount of time children are given to learn.
There's no better example than Edwards Middle School about a place that has seized that opportunity of more time and used it well.
No question that the Edwards community knows how far they've come.
What else did we learn?
Move up here. Isabella, you're gonna move over here. 36.
What Are we learning in this class? Yes.
6, 5, 10.
The Edwards had several problems when I first came. The enrollment was way down. The test scores were the lowest in the district. 2 children who attended this school had been shot and killed in their neighborhoods the year before I got here, and so that had cast a pall over the building. About 90% of students qualify for free and reduced lunch. More than a third of the students are special education. 2/3 are second language learners in one form or another. And so the kids are dealing with some challenges when they come here. Oftentimes the students are 2 or 3 grade levels behind, and our job was to kind of make up the ground quickly.
Riley was given just 2 years. He was fortunate to step in when the previous principal had secured a grant to expand learning time.
Okay, think about a word that starts with D.
Determined.
Determined. Okay, so she's trying her best and don't give up. Now, this is noisy. It's not nosy.
We all learn at different rates of speed, at different times in our lives when we're dealing with different material, and yet in schools we put kids on an assembly line.
We're locked into a school schedule that's a product of our past.
Let's keep going. We're almost done with the chapter.
If we ask, what is the time students actually need?
The oatmeal was delicious.
It's certainly more than 6.5 hours in 180 days. Time is a resource, it's not a strategy. It's like money, it's like autonomy. It can be used well or it can be used poorly.
We believe that time is the crucial factor, but it's got to be time used well.
Okay? Look around at the people raising their hand because you're going to be able to work with them.
We started using data to look at what skills each individual kid doesn't have and start targeting those kids, group them together, and then personalize the education for kids, put them in the right class at the right time with the right teacher.
I can be really strong, but not be brave.
In the case of Edwards, Riley felt the school already had teachers who could do the job once they were given proper support and development.
Thank you. So now I know I'm going to multiply my numerator and denominator by 3, but I'm going to do something so I don't confuse myself. What am I going to do so I don't confuse myself, Eduardo?
I felt like we had a pretty competent staff here.
I'm going to rewrite the problem.
Some really talented people. We just haven't put them in the right place.
So if you look at the really great schools in America that are overcoming poverty, they tend to have great teachers and more time, not one or the other.
You ready for your open response? Oh.
At Edwards, they expanded the hours in each school day, as well as the number of days in a year.
We identified kids that needed extra help to come in over the school vacations.
Somebody has a lot of opinions. What kind
You might get an hour of English a day in your typical class. Here, the kids were getting 5 hours of English a day. And so we were almost getting a month of instruction in this 1 week in small group classes with a great teacher. And this really helped our most struggling students to catch back up.
So what are some of the things you should look for whenever you're reading a story to be able to...
An equally important reason to expand time in school is to give kids a well-rounded education.
1, 2, ready.
By reaching out to all kinds of partners, Edwards was able to give kids rich learning experiences they otherwise would not have had, inside and outside the school.
So we had many partners.
You're close.
One of them brought a team of teachers, recent college graduates in, who would do tutoring with our kids, but also would take our kids on apprenticeships. So some kids went to law offices, some kids went to Harvard to do biomedical research, some kids went to internships at Google. I mean, we just had a lot of these high-quality experiences for our students.
5, 6, 7, 8.
The Boston Ballet got to come work with our students. We had the only football team in the city. We did musical theater and step dancing and karate and gave our kids this wealth of high-quality enrichment experiences, which, by the way, motivated them and they were excited about. Some of our kids may not be thrilled about being in math class,
Eyes up here, please.
but they knew if they wanted to play on the football team, they had to do well there.
So go ahead and now you're going to...
Learning really drives the machine. And if we focus on quality learning opportunities, that increased test scores will follow.
Saw immediate results on our state testing. Our students' proficiency levels had shot up dramatically in both English and mathematics. But more than that, we saw the engagement level of kids by going out and making school fun. Sometimes we get so caught up in test scores that we forget that learning should be fun and can be fun.
Their collective turnaround efforts paid off. Edwards went from being one of the lowest performing schools to one of the top performing schools in the city.
The outcomes for students here have just dramatically changed. And they've done it in a context that's different than many other expanded learning time schools. They've done it in a unionized, inside the district, existing school, with the majority of the faculty being 5, 10, 15-year veterans. So they've shown that this can work not just in a sort of laboratory model school that started from scratch, but in a pretty typical, challenged, urban, school in a difficult building with its, accumulated set of problems that you can have tremendous success within a few years.
Donuts are spelled weird.
But Massachusetts has learned that no one can afford to create these successes one school or one district at a time. So they've created change at the state level.
There are some limits to what an individual district can do. Without the state giving the district new tools to be able to enact the turnaround strategies and making the school day longer, putting more funds where they need to go, helping make the necessary staffing changes so the right people are on the bus to get the changes in the culture in the school changed quickly, then it becomes a lot more difficult for districts and schools to do it on their own.
Which is where we find ourselves now in the state of Connecticut. We can be proud of efforts around the state, but we must make change at a higher level so that our community can thrive and we can do right by our children.
The sense of urgency is both a moral one, an ethical one, but then also an economic one. The United States is continuing to lose ground internationally, and what it is that's going to make America ultimately continue to have the competitive edge over rising economies like India, China, and Brazil. It's an educated workforce.
Do you know how to subtract? Yes. Do you know how to round? Yes.
We talk about America being a meritocracy, the idea that anyone can be anything if they work hard enough. That actually only works if all kids start in the same place. So this is a game changer for children. If children don't have the same access to a high-quality education, then this country isn't what it says it is. And so this is the work, this is the civil rights issue of our time.